On my 70th birthday, I discovered the unbelievable secret my daughters kept from me. I will never forget that day. The laughter, the cake, the balloons, all of it felt hollow, like a shell. But the moment came when I saw it, that strange envelope tucked under my daughter's arm. My heart raced as I watched her. Emily was always my strong one, the one who fought through storms. But today, her face was pale, her hands trembling. She exchanged furtive glances with my other daughter, Sarah. The silence hung heavy in the air, a thick fog of tension. I felt it erupting inside me, a cocktail of dread and curiosity. I approached them. "What's that?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Is it something about me?" They froze. A messenger caught mid-sentence, realizing they had revealed too much. My stomach twisted. The cake, the candles, the decorations all felt like a backdrop to a play I didn't understand. I could hear the muffled laughter from the guests, but it felt distant, like an echo from another world. "Dad, it's complicated," Sarah finally whispered, her voice trembling. We wanted to protect you." "Protect me from what?" 1,000 scenarios thundered in my mind. A scandal. A betrayal. Every beat of my heart was amplified in the stillness. My thoughts raced back to every moment I had spent with them, the family dinners, late-night talks, the countless expressions of love. All of it could be a lie, woven together like a deceptive tapestry. I wanted to scream, to shake them and demand the truth. Instead, I inhaled deeply, and while my throat tightened, my vision darkened. Why had they hidden something from me? Did they think I couldn't handle it? My fingers trembled as I reached for the envelope, desperate to unveil the mystery that lurked within. But Emily pulled it away, shaking her head, her blue eyes shining with unshed tears. "You don't understand, it's not safe, not safe." I felt a cold sweat break across my brow. I stared into their eyes, searching for the truth behind their fear. My heart pounded like a wild drum, each beat a reminder of how fragile our lives can be. That moment stretched on, thick with uncertainty. "What is it?" I demanded, fighting against the panic rising in my chest. "Tell me." As the room around us faded into a dull roar, I could almost hear the ticking clock counting down to a revelation that had the potential to shatter everything. Emily closed her eyes, breathing heavily as if trying to summon courage. Then, like thunder in a clear sky, a sudden scream pierced through the laughter of the party. I turned, adrenaline surging. Was it connected? My daughters exchanged looks, the flicker of fear twisting their brows. Suddenly, I felt something shift deep inside me. Each breath I took was a step closer to a truth I wasn't ready to face. "Dad, it really is huge," Sarah whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. What was this secret? My mind raced as the uncertainty wrapped around my heart like a vice. The party continued around me, oblivious to the bomb that had just been dropped in this small corner of the room. I needed to know. But was I ready? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. I stood there, the laughter of the guests fading into a muffled din. It was as if time had slowed down, leaving just the three of us locked in this trembling moment of uncertainty. Emily's eyes, usually so bright, now seemed like two pools of despair, and Sarah was shaking her head, as if the weight of the world rested on her slender shoulders. "Please, just tell me," I pressed, desperation leaking into my voice. "You've done a great job of protecting me all these years, but I can handle it. Whatever it is." A flicker of fear danced in Emily's eyes, as she reluctantly released the envelope back to her sister. Sarah hesitated, glancing around at the other partygoers, their smiles blinding in contrast to the tempest brewing in her heart. My heart sank. I could see she was terrified not only for me, but for what they held back from me. I stepped closer, searching her face for any trace of the truth. A moment stretched interminably until she exhaled heavily and began to speak, her voice trembling like a fragile leaf caught in a storm. "Dad, there's something you don't remember. Something from your past that could change everything." What could it be? My mind filled with shadows, with remnants of memories I thought I'd locked away. I searched my brain for clues, a forgotten past calling out for recognition. Emily stepped away, her hand pressed against her mouth as if biting back a sob. "Remember what happened when you turned 20. She whispered, her eyes darting between Sarah and me. I felt an icy grip on my chest. That age was marked with chaos following my father's swift decline, the family splitting under circumstances fraught with turmoil. Yet, no specific detail from that tumultuous year rang true in my mind, only a blur of faces, lost connections, and the grief that tangled around our once joyful home. "Why would you bring that up?" I asked, voice trembling, hoping to ward off whatever horror was about to unfurl. "Because it's connected," Sarah said, her bravery faltering yet her resolve unwavering. "It's why we wanted to protect you, Dad. You had a brother." "A brother?" The word ricocheted in my head, rewriting my childhood. I had always believed I was the only son, the inheritor of my father's legacy, his only pride. A part of me wanted to scoff at such a notion, but another part felt a cold chill snake down my spine. Emily nodded, her eyes shining with sorrow, like a lighthouse cutting through a fog. "He was taken from us. We thought you had forgotten him, or maybe we thought you wouldn't want to remember. But what? If you'd known, you would have searched for him. And we didn't want you to hurt again." The world around me faded as fragments of a different past ricocheted through my mind. What truths had I pushed aside in my mind as I tried to build a life, a legacy? My heart sank deeper. Had I really forgotten a brother? Or did I bury myself in denial because of pain? Where is he? Is he still alive? My heart raced with hope and fear, the taste of tears pooling in my throat. "That's the thing, Dad," Sarah whispered, her annoyance with herself bleeding into her voice. "We don't know. We found the envelope recently, hidden away in Mum's old things. But we were afraid to tell you, because we didn't know how you would take it." "Strange envelope," I murmured, recalling the way it looked, the vulnerability it carried like a poisoned dart. Suddenly, it felt so much heavier. "What's in it?" Sarah glanced at Emily again, before pulling out a small letter, delicately creased and faded. This is his last known address. If he's out there, we could find him." As she handed it to me, my fingers trembled, but I felt a tidal wave of hope crashing through the cracks in my guarded heart. Suddenly, the room felt charged, an electric current of possibilities swirling around us. Could I actually find him? Could we bring our family back together? Before I could take a breath, the tension shattered when a loud crash erupted from the party. Glass shattered, and people shrieked, their laughter obliterated in an instant. My world jolted back to reality, and a shiver ran through me as I turned my head to see chaos unfolding. In a matter of moments, everything had shifted. I looked back at my daughters, their faces pale and unsure, the envelope and its implications hanging suspended in the air. A choice lay before us: to remain trapped in this moment of fear, or to step into the chaos and search for hope amidst the ashes of uncertainty. And when I heard a muffled cry from somewhere near the entrance of the house. A voice that called to me, one I hadn't heard in decades yet recognized instantly. The sound wrapped itself around my heart like a familiar cloak, pulling me to the edge of something greater than myself. Dad! Help! It cried. In that haunting moment, I felt the floor beneath me shift, as if the very ground I stood on was crumbling beneath the weight of buried memories. My life, my lost brother, and the secrets that entwined us danced in the shadows as I took my first step toward the door. As I pushed through the throng of guests, the shattered glass crunched beneath my shoes, echoing the chaos thrumming in my chest. The shout had ignited something deep inside me, a flicker of instinct to protect, to shield. The urgency was overwhelming. My heart raced as I called out, "Where are you?" My voice fought to rise above the cacophony, driven by a fear I'd never anticipated. Each step felt tortured. The panic surrounding me was palpable, mingling with confusion and dread. Whispers of worry coiled around my thoughts as I glanced back at Emily and Sarah. Their fearful expressions mirrored what I felt. They didn't know where this would lead either, and yet the echo of that voice pulsed through me like an unyielding drumbeat. Dad! Help! As I reached the entrance, the sight that met my eyes was as surreal as a nightmare. A group of guests had started to move outward, their faces bathed in shock and horror, while others stood frozen, their eyes wide and mouths agape. My heartbeat quickened when I spotted him, a man, disheveled and bleeding, crumpled on the steps just outside the door. He was young too, barely older than my daughters. "Is he okay?" I breathed, crouching down beside him. "Can you hear me?" He met my gaze, and something in his eyes struck a chord deep within me. Despite the dirt and bruising shadows on his face, I felt an odd recognition, as if, in that moment, he were a piece of my own heart, lost and frayed, somehow returning. "I tried," he gasped, struggling to push through the fog of pain. "I tried to get here. I thought." "What is your name?" I asked, afraid to voice the next question that burned on my tongue. Was this possible? Was he truly? "Alex," he murmured, his voice ragged, glancing past me at Emily and Sarah, who stood helplessly, confusion etched across their young faces. My world tilted on its axis, the truth unfurling as shards of recognition slid into place. "Alex," I whispered. "My brother, my lost brother." Each syllable felt like a prayer, a plea to the universe, begging for answers to the mysteries that stormed within. A flurry of emotions engulfed me, a mix of aching sorrow and overwhelming joy. I reached out, brushing my fingers against his shoulder, a tentative connection, as if the warmth from my touch could anchor him from slipping away. "I thought I know." His gaze pierced through the haze. "They told me the truth about you, but I couldn't stay away. I had to see you." "Who told you?" Before he could respond, the sound of sirens in the distance sliced through the air, a lifeline that signaled help. But that help would also carry with it questions and scrutiny, questions I feared more than the chaos of the present moment. What had led Alex here? Why had he sought me out after all these years? "We need to get you inside," I said firmly, my voice breaking. "You're hurt." As I helped him up, the gravity of the situation squeezed my heart. Behind us, Emily and Sarah stood still, a portrait of dependency, bewildered and unsure what to expect. I could see the threads of anxiety weaving tighter around them, coiling with each heartbeat. I turned back to them, forcing a smile amidst the uncertainty. "It's going to be okay." But while hope flickered in my chest, doubt gnawed at the edges of my mind. What if Alex turned out to be more than just a brother seeking connection? What if there were shadows tied to his appearance, shadows that implicated my daughters in some larger web of pain and regret? I had little time to ponder, as Alex's weight pressed against me, pulling me deeper into the unknown. As we stepped inside the entryway, sirens flaring, the room buzzed with a frigid silence. The once jubilant atmosphere was replaced with apprehension, a storm brewing in the hearts of those gathered. I read the confusion on their faces, a world turned upside down, secrets forced into the light. Then, the unthinkable happened. Sarah's voice, tremulous but determined, cut through the silence. "Is that him?" she asked, her voice quavering as she stepped closer. "You found him?" "Yeah, it's Alex," I stammered, my heart racing against the implications of my words while I reached out to comfort my daughters, but instead of joy or relief from them, the air thickened with dread. Emily's hands curled into fists, and she shook her head in disbelief. "No, no, we weren't ready." "Ready for what?" I pressed, my mind spinning wildly as I struggled to make sense of my daughter's reactions. At that very moment, a police officer pushed through the crowd, his solemn face pinched with concern. "Is everything all right?" he asked, his eyes darting from Alex to me, then to my daughters. There, amidst the swirling chaos of emotions, a new reality gleamed on the edge of the horizon. The last promise of illumination, the possibility of healing, and the shadow of unearthing buried truths danced around us. All at once, that haunting voice echoed again in my mind, "Help." But this time, it was accompanied by a new fear. There was so much I didn't understand, so much I hadn't prepared for. As I glanced at my brother, the brother I never knew, the weight of this revelation pressed against my chest like an anchor, and dread gripped me tighter. In this whirlwind of circumstances, our lives were on the brink. Unanswered questions hung heavy in the air, and with every breath, I knew we were only at the threshold of something unimaginable. As the officer stepped closer, the tension in the air crystallized into something palpable, holding us all captive in a moment that felt both suspended in time and hastily racing towards an unknown conclusion. Is he hurt?" the officer asked, his voice tinged with urgency as he assessed the situation. I could sense Emily and Sarah inching back, as if the very presence of Alex turned our familial bond into a fragile tapestry that might unravel at any moment. "Yes, he's hurt," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady, fighting the tempest of confusion swirling inside. "But he's here. He's my brother." The officer's brow furrowed, and for a brief moment, I glimpsed an empathic flicker in his eyes, an understanding of the complexities woven into our lives. He nodded toward Alex, offering a hand of support. "Let's get you checked out, all right?" "Wait." Sarah's voice rang clear, injecting a startling clarity into the chaos, as she stepped forward. "What do you mean, he's your brother?" I felt my stomach twist uncomfortably as Emily's eyes widened, the revelation smoldering with intensity. "You're kidding, right?" Emily's skepticism hung heavily in the air. "No," I whispered, my heart limping under the weight of their disbelief. "He's real, and he's been searching for me." "I don't understand," Sarah said quietly, her eyes darting to Alex, whose pain was evident yet overshadowed by the gravity of being forgotten and found all at once. "There are so many things to explain," I admitted, feeling the depth of my voice shake with each word. "When I was younger, but before I could finish, Alex interjected, his voice hoarse yet resolute. "They took me from you. I had to find you, to tell you the truth. They are back." The words slipped out with an urgency that momentarily silenced the gathering, a visceral shudder rippling through the crowd like a whispered secret. "What do you mean, back?" I demanded, an icy grip seizing my heart. "The people who separated us. They want more than just the past, they want to control our futures," he said, his gaze darting nervously, scanning the crowd behind me. I felt the room spin, reality flipping upside down. My mind raced, trying to piece together the fragments of Alex's statement. The laughter of celebration had shifted into a veil of unease, where what had once been a family gathering now felt like the backdrop of an impending storm. "Is that why you came after all this time?" I asked, grasping his forearm to steady myself and him. A flicker of compassion ignited in my chest. Here was this broken soul, a brother I hardly knew yet inherently connected to me. "Yes," Alex whispered, his eyes pleading as he leaned closer. "I've watched over you, and I thought I could finally come and explain, but I never imagined it would be like this." A silence enveloped us, thickening the air with unspoken fears and unshed tears. In that moment, I felt a buried sorrow rise within me. A child torn from a family, longing desperately for reconnect on a wound I had been afraid would never heal. And yet, it was not just my pain tangled in this story. Sarah and Emily were woven into the fabric, their lives shifting unfathomably with each truth revealed. "We can't let them find us," Alex murmured, his voice shaking slightly. "We have to stay close." The officer finally noticed the shifting questions in our eyes, stepping back momentarily. "I think it's best we take just one moment," I interrupted, needing to address my daughter's fears before plunging deeper into this reality. "Emily," Sarah, "listen to me. I know this is overwhelming, but Alex is not the enemy here. He is your family. We can work through this together." Tears pooled in Sarah's eyes, her expression twisting in confusion. "But Mom, we were happy before this. We don't know how to handle this." My heart shattered at her words, the innocence of her plea stripping away layers of protective instinct I had worn for so long. "I know, sweetheart," I whispered, drawing her into an embrace, while the weight of responsibility pressed heavily on my chest. "I want to protect you, but I also need to embrace what we can't see." "Protect us from what?" Emily's voice rose, her frustration palpable. "From our own family secrets. We deserve answers, not more ghosts." "Then let us gather those answers," I offered gently, but the churning storm in my gut warned me that asking for clarity amidst chaos might prove to be our undoing. Just then, a piercing alarm cut through our dialogue, stronger than the sirens outside. It was the emergency broadcast on the nearest screen, flickering to life and distorting the gathering scene behind us. Breaking news. A series of violent incidents linked to a rogue former agency has emerged. Citizens are urged to remain indoors. My pulse quickened as Alex tightened his grip around my arm, raw fear etching lines of worry across his brow. "They've found us," he hissed, his breath shallow, each word laden with urgency. "Who has?" I asked, casting my gaze around the room. The delighted gathering had morphed into chaos, uncertain and electric with the promise of revelation and danger intertwined. The time for clarity was slipping through our fingers like sand. Alex's arrival was no mere coincidence. It was a harbinger of the uncomfortable truth buried in our shared past. As the room erupted into panic, an inexplicably heavy weight crushed down, delivering a message that rang all too clear. The truth we had long hidden was ready to unveil its sharp edges. And just like that, amidst the descending storm of fears, I caught a glimpse of a shadowy figure lingering at the entrance, their face obscured by the chaos. My heart plummeted as recognition bloomed, a familiar figure from my past, spectre of a history I had thought long buried. "Who are you?" I called out, voice trembling, suddenly knowing that all of my instincts had been correct. This was just the beginning. The figure stepped forward, pushing through the swarm of flailing limbs and fearful cries. My breath hitched as the features of this familiar face came into focus. A blend of memories I thought I had tucked away, along with old photographs of a life I could scarcely recall. "Mom," the figure whispered, barely audible over the cries of confusion surrounding us. Oliver? I gasped, the name escaping my lips with a mixture of shock and renewed disbelief. It had been years since I had last laid eyes on my estranged brother, the man who had symbolized another wound in our family's already frayed tapestry. He looked older, the wrinkles around his eyes deeper, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that beneath that worn exterior still lay the boy I once played with in the warm sunlight of our childhood. "What are you doing here?" I breathed, my heart racing, desperately seeking answers even while chaos raged around us. His gaze shifted from mine to Alex, who stood rooted beside me, the tension crackling electric between the two. "They are here for him," Oliver said, his voice low and urgent, but it didn't sound like he was merely speaking of the rogue agency that had been mentioned earlier. "Who?" I asked, my mind spinning with the dizzying implications, each word unraveling a string to a much larger tapestry of intrigue. "The people who took him from you, they believe they can use him," he replied, his eyes darting toward the exit, urgency radiating from him like a wildfire. "We don't have much time. You need to trust me." Sarah clutched my hand tightly. "Mom, what is happening?" Her voice trembled, her eyes wide, pleading for the reassurance that I was simultaneously searching for myself. "Oliver, you should have never come here," I said, an echo of blame threatening to surface despite the bewilderment that clenched at my chest. "You abandoned us when we needed you the most." "I know," he said, regret etched into every line of his weary face. "But I had no choice. The same people who took Alex, they threatened my life too, threatened anyone connected to you. That's why I had to stay away. None of that matters right now." Alex interrupted, his voice urgently rising above our intimate exchange. "We need to leave. Now?" The word leave filled the air like an ominous cloud. My heart raced at the prospect of flight, but what lay beyond this moment of panic? What could we even hope to escape, as the emergency broadcast continued to blare in the background, atop warnings about conflicts and rogue agencies? A new wave of urgency washed over me. This world had been deceptively simple, built on the promise of a happy family gathering. Now, exposed truths twisted around the remains of those fragile hopes. A herd of people surged toward the exits, their faces masks of confusion and fear, while others screamed, desperate to know what was happening. "Over here. We can go this way." Oliver beckoned, leading us away from the throng. I grabbed Emily and Sarah, squeezing their hands tightly as we followed, each step heavy with the weight of decisions that had already been made for us. As we crashed through a side door and stumbled into the crisp evening air, I glanced back at the chaos we had left behind. My chest tightened. What had once been a celebration was now an ominous metaphor of our fractured past, a piece of art that had shattered, revealing too many broken pieces. "Where are we going?" Sarah's voice quivered, ushering me back to the present. The fear in her eyes danced with uncertainty, mingling with the remnants of celebration that had painted our night. "To a safe place," Oliver affirmed, though the conviction in his voice wavered. "I can't guarantee anything, but I'll do my best to protect you. You all deserve to know the truth, and it's time that we face it together." "Together," I repeated, the prospect weighing heavily on me. The forces drawing us apart for years now lurked just beyond the corner of my mind, their shadowy intentions coiling ever tighter around our fates. We raced down a dimly lit alley, the worlds of family ties and treachery colliding around us. My heart clenched at the implications of Oliver's revelations, tangled in uncertainty and foreboding. Were we truly safe anywhere? But as we rounded a corner, the night surprised us. A car idled at the curb, motor running, lights cutting through the darkness. My gut twisted at the sight. Everything felt painfully familiar, like a cue from a long-forgotten play that I wished I could forget. Instinctively, I knew this was a choice that stood before us, not merely a vehicle for escape, but a stepping stone into a new web of uncertainties. "Get in," Oliver urged, glancing down the silent street, as if danger might emerge from the shadows at any moment. We hesitated, the weight of our fate hanging in the balance. I cast a searching glance at Emily and Sarah, knowing that their trusting eyes were honing in on me for guidance, questions brimming beneath the surface. Desperation thrived in the air around us, clashing with my protectiveness, as Oliver beckoned us toward potential safety. Just as I was about to take a step forward, a chilling realization tightened around my heart. What if stepping into that car led us deeper into a chasm of danger? What if it meant abandoning a chance we never truly grasped? Before I could voice the analysis racing through my mind, a loud crash echoed behind us, a signal that we were out of time. Shadows loomed closer, piercing the veil of our sanctuary. "Mom!" Sarah's fearful cry pulled me back, that single syllable carrying the weight of her world, urging me forward into life-altering choices. With a decisive breath, the fragments of my heart flooded with conviction, rekindling something I thought had been extinguished: hope. "Okay, we'll go," I breathed, my voice shaking yet fierce, eyes fixed on the path laid out before us. It was time to embrace the truth, terrifying as it might be, and carve a future from the shards of our broken past, whether together or apart. As we moved toward the awaiting car, an unexpected moment of kindness emerged from the crew gathered around. It was a stranger, slipping us a note. The ink quickened and barely dried. "Trust no one. They are watching always," it read. The chill it sent through my veins tightened my resolve, intertwining fear and determination into a cascade that surged with newfound purpose. We stepped into the car, and as the door slammed shut behind us, I felt history breathing down my neck, the tangible essence of years lost and family futures intertwined, destiny waiting anxiously to unfold. And with that pulse of hope drumming through me, I clenched my daughter's hands tighter, knowing that whatever awaited us was going to change everything. The car swallowed us whole, the doors shutting with a finality that cradled us in uncertainty. As the engine roared to life and lurched forward, a mix of fear and adrenaline coursed through my veins. The world outside blurred, shadows falling away as we darted into the unknown, yet the weight of Oliver's revelations and the chilling note settled heavily in my gut. "Where to?" the driver asked, glancing back at us in the rearview mirror. He had an air of practiced calmness, but his eyes mirrored our fear, wild, electric, and uncertain. "Just drive," Oliver replied, his voice firm, as if willing the driver to understand the urgency that wrapped around us like an embrace too tight to escape. "Get us to the old warehouse on Lake Street." "Are you sure that is safe?" I interjected, the question slipping out with an edge of panic, though knowing that every second counted against invisible pursuers drawing nearer. "I know it's not ideal, but it's south the only place I can think of. I'll explain everything once we're there," he said, his gaze drifting out the window, a silent prayer for our safety entwined with an anguish I could barely recognize. "I don't like this," Sarah murmured beside me, squeezing my hand tighter. "What if they find us?" "Just breathe, sweetheart," I whispered back, trying to find strength in the soft tremor of her voice. I could feel Emily's body pressed against me, her silence deafening in the wake of the storm. Each breath we took felt as if it threaded us deeper into danger's tendrils, and the weight of the unknown pressed heavier with every moment. The driver turned sharply, sending us skidding onto a side road that seemed to lead nowhere. Buildings raced by in a blur. Shadows twisted and curled, and the dim street lamps flickered like weak candles against the approaching darkness. "Oliver, what did you mean before?" I asked as the driver navigated a sharp turn. "Why do they want Alex?" He turned toward me now, his expression a blend of determination and regret. "They believe he holds something that could change everything." "Change what?" My heart raced, pulses of anxiety drumming against my temples. He didn't answer, his silence fueling my apprehension. The doubts bubbled up again. How far had he strayed? What connections had he forged in his years apart from us? And what else had he left unspoken? I glanced at Sarah, who was biting down on her lip, her eyes wide with worry, and at Emily, who looked between us, a storm of emotions brewing beneath her stoic expression. We were supposed to be happy, I whispered, the hurt of that lost promise seeping out like a wound newly opened. Just one night together. Why is everything so shattered? Oliver's gaze fell, and for a moment, he appeared smaller, the burdens of his choices hitching upon his shoulders. I tried to protect you to keep you safe, but the danger never stopped. It just kept growing. I thought I could stay away, a way of pretending the past was behind us. Because clearly, it's not, I retorted, my voice sharper than I intended. The bitterness was rising again, a long-standing companion to my sorrow. Each revelation opened wounds that I thought were cauterized long ago. None of this was easy for any of us, he shot back, eyes blazing. But I couldn't stand by while they before he could finish. The driver swerved violently, tires screeching against asphalt. The jolt nearly sent me crashing against the door. Sirens blared in the distance, curling through the night air like sinister whispers. Faster! I urged, desperation clawing at my throat. With urgency, the driver pressed on the gas, accelerating into the dark maze of streets. My heart raced to keep up with the pounding chaos around us, but beneath it all, a creeping realization settled within me. This was not just about protecting my daughters. My entire family had, at long last, descended into a web of secrets too tangled to escape without sacrifice. Hold on! The driver shouted as he rounded another corner, and I saw lights ahead, a series of flashing blue and red that danced against the horizon. Are they? Sarah started, sheer panic etched into her voice. Don't look back, I commanded, willing my voice firm despite the palpitation of my heart. Whatever you do, don't look back. The sirens were from a police car, and the thought of attention drew my mind in a dizzying spiral. What if we were caught? What if they led those who pursued us right to us? Oliver leaned forward, speaking low to the driver. Get off the main road. We need to lose them. The urgency in his voice left no room for doubt. We needed to disappear, but where, oh where, could we go? As we sped through silent back roads, abandoned warehouses, and desolate corners of a city I barely recognized, my thoughts spiraled. How had it escalated to this? And who else could be affected by the secrets trailing behind us like a dark shadow? Just as I thought we might yet slip under danger's radar, the car jerked violently, out of control for a moment before the driver steadied it. I felt another tremor rumble through my body, not just from fear, but from an unsettling realization that maybe, just maybe, we were already ensnared in a situation we couldn't untangle. The faint glow of an unfamiliar building loomed ahead. Their turn in there, Oliver commanded, yet just as the driver complied, the screech of tires filled the air, loud bangs erupted from behind us, a cacophony that sent ice crashing down my spine. The world shifted. I glimpsed frantic shadows closing in, shrouded in purpose and unrelenting pursuit. Go! 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 I screamed, adrenaline surging as fingers tightened around the door handle, a bitter fight-or-flight response coiling through me, and as we careened toward the unknown refuge promised by Oliver, a sickening tension knotted my stomach, for somewhere in the depths of this chaos, I realized we weren't just racing against pursuers, but against the very fabric of family that had once woven together the threads of our existence, and I couldn't shake the feeling that soon, the truth that propelled us forward would also threaten to rip us asunder. Then, with a thundering crash that shook me to my very core, the world erupted once more as darkness enveloped us, and I knew we might never escape the shadows of the past that loomed just ahead. The world felt suspended in a haunting moment, as the crash twisted time itself. The driver had slammed the brakes just too late. The sound of metal crumpling echoed through the dark void we were thrust into, each of us held captive by the sudden stillness that followed. We were trapped in the aftermath, entangled in disbelief, the air heavy with the smell of rubber and fear. "Is everyone okay?" I gasped, trying to shake off the disorientation that settled upon me like a fog. The silence that lay heavily in the car felt like an impending storm, and deep down, I feared that any comfort I held would vanish like shadows fleeing the light. "Mom?" Sarah's voice broke the silence, trembling as she reached for me. Her fingers brushed mine, grasping onto the last remnants of familiarity. I turned to find her wide eyes glossed with tears, and I instinctively pulled her closer. "I'm here," I murmured, hoping to inject strength into the tremor of my voice. Oliver leaned across the narrow space, his voice low yet urgent. "We need to get out. Now?" His gaze flitted to the rearview mirror, the ghost of desperation lurking there. "They'll be here any moment." As if to punctuate his words, the wail of sirens drifted closer, weaving through the fabric of silence like a harbinger of doom. I could feel the weight of urgency crash over us again, wrestling against the fear that had rooted itself in the pit of my stomach. The driver was already pushing against his door, unbuckling himself with clumsy urgency. "I'll see if the coast is clear," he said, tone strained. He swung the door open and slipped cautiously into the night. "Wait," I tried to call out, but my voice fell flat as the door clicked shut behind him. Oliver turned to face me, his eyes searching mine, as if seeking an anchor in the storm swirling within us. "We have to follow him, we can't stay here." I nodded, bolstered by a sudden surge of resolve. "Okay," but my voice faltered as I caught a glimpse of Emily, lying in a stillness that felt too absolute. "Emily?" She moved abruptly, the shock of the crash bringing her back to the moment, but her eyes was glazed with confusion. "What happened?" she murmured, though her voice belied a deeper worry. The familiar shadow of fear wove into her words. "Just sit tight," I said quickly, anxiously tugging at her hand. "We have to move right now." "Mom, I can't," she replied, panic threatening to break her composure. I pulled her closer, and could feel the warmth of her body against mine. That warmth filled the jagged cracks that had been exposed too many times. "Breathe, Em. Just breathe," I whispered, hoping my heartbeat would reassure her. I caught another glimpse of Oliver's pained expression. In a sudden movement, the driver flung the door open. His eyes were wide with panic. "We need to go. They are not far behind." The urgency in his voice shoved the last of my fears away. I swung open my door and stepped into the cool night, adrenaline flooding my system like a shooting star tearing through a sky thick with darkness. The warehouse stood tall, a shadow that seemed to absorb the chaos around it. We hesitated by the entrance, Oliver shooting the driver a look of determination. "Stay close, and don't make a sound," he ordered as we moved in tandem, hearts thrumming like the wild drum of a storm. As soon as we stepped inside, the air was thick and stale, punctuated by the ghostly remnants of unfinished tales and dreams. I leaned against a crumbling wall, breathing heavily as anxiety twisted knots in my stomach. Distant memories of laughter and late-night whispers echoed in the shadows, threatening hope before it could find purchase. But just as we adjusted to the darkness, and prepared for whatever was coming, a flicker of noise, a shuffle. A murmur cut through the stillness, piercing the quiet like a shattered mirror. "Oliver," I whispered, dread pooling at the base of my throat. The atmosphere vibrated with tension, anticipation heavy as a storm cloud ready to burst. "I know," he replied, securing a look of grim resolve. "Stay behind me." Within moments, figures emerged from the murky shadows, their voices low but urgent, filled with an intensity that sent a chill spiraling through my veins. The dim light revealed faces taut with determination, their eyes sharp against the darkness. Each step they took reverberated against the cement floor like a tattoo marking the approach of inevitable confrontation. "Don't move." A voice demanded, a gruff tone laced with authority that sought to command rather than invite. My heart slammed against my chest at the sudden tension stretching across the room. As the tension rose higher, I felt Emily's grip tighten around my arm, a silent plea pulsating through her touch. And it was in that moment, surrounded by darkness and looming figures, that I realized my family was more than just those who shared my blood. There were hidden connections weaving new courses through our lives. 2.1 figure stepped forward, a silhouette emerging just beyond the shadows. "You don't understand what's at stake." The voice held a mix of anger and fear, each word weighted with implications I was yet to grasp. "I deserve to know," I shouted, propelled by sheer desperation, as I glimpsed the chaos I've been pulled into. "You've kept secrets from me all this time. Why? What really happened?" But before I could absorb their response, the ground beneath us quaked, a pulse of danger thrumming in the air. "Run!" Oliver shouted, just at the moment the figure lunged forward, intent on seizing what had remained hidden. All the while, everything I had believed began to unravel at the edges. A revelation hung in the air, poised to strike, and as we hurried away from the approaching shadows, I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever truth awaited us was an awakening we couldn't ignore. All the while, the sirens grew louder, close enough that they pierced into the fabric of our reality, and I knew our lives had just entered a new chapter, a dangerous chapter that could unravel everything we thought we knew. The thud of our hurried footsteps echoed against the rough walls of the warehouse, a frantic rhythm underscoring our flight. I could feel my heart drumming in my ears as Oliver led the way, his silhouette a bulwark against the rest of our world that felt like it was caving in. Each step sent jolts of panic coursing through me, wrapping around my chest like a vice. "Keep moving," Oliver urged, glancing back to ensure we were following, his face etched with determination. The energy of urgency coursed through my veins. I stole a glance at Emily, who remained glued to my side, her wide eyes filled with fear that mirrored my own. We sprinted past dusty crates and old machinery, shadows dancing in the edges of my vision, reminding me that we were not alone. The figures we had encountered loomed still somewhere behind us, keeping close, waiting for the right moment to pounce. I could hardly believe the weight of the truth lying just out of reach, tantalizing yet terrifying. Suddenly, Sarah tripped, her foot snagging on a wayward beam. "Help!" she cried, panic breaking through her usual facade of strength. Before I could take a step towards her, Oliver was there, extending his arms to her. "Grab my hand." The moment hung like an arrow drawn taut, and I could see Sarah hesitate, a flash of indecision darting across her face. But instinct kicked in, and she reached up, her fingers clasping Oliver's hand, and he hoisted her up with a strength that surprised even me. "Let us go," he commanded as we continued to flee, the sirens still wailing, echoing through the dark corners of our dread. Fear was the most visceral connection we had in that hectic maelstrom, a high-voltage current that held us tightly together even as chaos swirled around us. In a burst of adrenaline, we turned a corner and found ourselves inside what appeared to be a small office. There was no way out, the only window was boarded up, and the door was locked tight. "What do we do?" Emily's voice trembled, each syllable laced with the heaviness I felt in my heart. "Bar the door," Oliver yelled, scanning the room. "There has to be something we can use." I searched alongside him, fumbling through stacks of papers and dust-matted furniture, desperately trying to find something, anything that could hold against the threat we felt looming over us. As the sound of footsteps grew closer, my thoughts spiraled. This could not be how it ended. I wouldn't allow it. Within this seemingly endless fight for survival, I kept sensing the whispers of secrets, yet to be dredged from the shadows a truth that bound us together despite the fear that threatened to rip us apart. A memory flickered through my mind, my girls, when they were small, giggling in the garden under the sun, every moment soaked in warmth and innocent laughter. Could we still find that warmth now? Or was it buried under years of silence and untold stories? Just then, Sarah spotted a thick wooden table, hesitating for a split second before tipping it over with desperate strength. It clattered to the ground, creating an improvised barricade in front of the door. My heart swelled with pride. She still had that fight in her. "We're not done yet," I told myself fiercely. "We can't give in." The footsteps paused outside for a heartbeat, then resumed their advance. I placed my palm on the table, feeling its rough texture grounding me. "I need you all to listen," I urged, my voice steady, rising above the panic that threatened to suffocate us. "We can get through this together. Just like we always have. Remember your grandmother. She fought for the truth, and we owe it to her to do the same." The girls shared glances, questions pooling in their eyes, merging with the fear and uncertainty. Conditions were precarious, but somewhere deep in my core, I sensed an ember of hope flickering. Despite everything, their faith in me still brimmed, unbroken. Just then, the door rattled violently as a figure pounded against it. We gasped collectively, a shared fear escaping into the tight confines of our hiding place. "Stop! You don't understand." A voice boomed, an authority wrapped in desperation, but I couldn't make out who belonged to it, an enemy or someone trying to warn us of a deeper threat. In that split second, a memory, painful yet vivid, surged a night in the past when I received a phone call that shattered our lives. "It's time," I whispered to myself, realization dawning like a faint light amidst despair. "We have to tell them the truth," I said without thinking, my voice barely a breath above the sudden rush of adrenaline. The girls turned to me, confusion etched upon their brows. "What do you mean, Mom?" Sarah asked, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and hope. Before I could respond, before I could find the right words to articulate the secrets I had buried myself, the footsteps outside ceased, followed by a heavy silence, an eerie pause pregnant with unanswered questions. The door shut again, and chills ran down my spine. I knew in that instant, what lay on the other side could change everything. Just then, the door hinges creaked ominously as a figure emerged into the dim light, obscured by shadows yet unmistakably familiar. My heart plummeted as recognition set in. This was one of us, but had made a choice I could never fathom. "Mom, we need to talk," came the voice, layered with confusion and an undisguisable weight of regret. "Everything they told you is a lie." As dread settled in my stomach, I realized I was teetering on the edge of a truth that could crumple my reality in an instant, and the walls began to close around me, obscuring the last vestiges of the peace I once clung to. I stared at the figure silhouetted in the doorway, heart racing, breath hitching in my throat. It was Jacob, a name I had not uttered in years, a ghost pulled from the deepest recesses of my mind. The son I thought I lost forever now stood before me, and I couldn't tell if the shock or the betrayal weighed more heavily on my heart. "Jacob," I whispered, disbelieving, as if saying his name might shatter the impossibility of the moment. "Mom, we need to talk," he repeated, his voice raw and filled with urgency. The shadows cast by the flickering overhead light flickered across his face, revealing anguish hidden beneath his calm exterior. My pulse quickened not from fear alone, but from a rush of memories, of joy turned bitter, resurrected by his mere presence. "How could you possibly know I was here?" I managed, glancing at the girls, their faces reflecting the same mix of shock and confusion swirling within me. Sarah clasped Emily's hand tightly, their grip a fortress against the unfolding chaos. "Because I've been looking for you, for all of you," Jacob replied, stepping closer, an uninvited spectre returning home. "I thought you'd abandoned us just like they said you would." A wealth of questions surged within me, battling for air against the overwhelming weight of emotions my son's return stirred. What do you mean they? Who are they? It doesn't matter right now, he said, glancing over his shoulder, as if expecting someone to leap out from the shadows. What matters is that you've been misled. The truth is more perilous than you realize. A tight knot formed in my stomach. My mind raced back to the secrets I had kept from the girls, the truths I buried so deeply. Nothing made sense. But what could possibly be so terrible that you couldn't share it with us? I pressed, desperation creeping into my words. The silhouettes of my daughters, whom I promised to shield, now stood caught in the torrents of my regrets. Everything, Jacob said, voice dropping to a low murmur. About Dad, about me, about our family. The fight nothing is what it seems. It cut deeper, this revelation. The walls I had built, bolstered by years of silence, felt like they were beginning to crack under the weight of the revelations just out of reach. Memories blurred together instead of compassion and comfort. I found resentment and betrayal. I had lost Jacob once, and now was I losing him again. I need you to trust me, Mom, he added, his tone turning urgent, or we could lose everything. Betwixt betrayal and disbelief, I glanced at Oliver, who regarded Jacob with a mix of suspicion and protection. Sarah exchanged frantic glances with Emily. Both were stuck in this horrific limbo I had dragged them into. Their youth, their vulnerability, pieced together fragments of my heart I thought I had closed off forever. Do you remember the summer when we went to the lake? Jacob continued, eyes darting from the closed door to me. The secret hideout we made. I always thought you'd come back for me. That childlike memory tugged at my heart, pulling me between past and present. I longed for a moment's solace within the chaos, yet the truth seemed insurmountable. I thought you were gone, I whispered. I thought I had you couldn't have known. He shook his head. I survived. I was taken, but I found a way to escape. I needed you to know that this family, the stories you thought were just that, had hidden layers. Hidden layers. I pushed, doubt creeping in, yet curiosity flickered like a candle, desperate for light. Everything you were told about me isn't true. The fire wasn't just an accident. There are people who want to keep our past buried. The custody battle that was orchestrated to divide us. 4 years. His words fell heavy, unearthing buried fears I thought I had laid to rest. The air felt thick, charged with unasked questions, the answers hovering just out of reach. My focus shifted to Oliver, who narrowed his eyes, assessing this new dimension of danger. If what you say is true, then why now? What is their endgame? Because they are coming for you, Jacob murmured, voice low with urgency. They've already tracked me down, and it's only a matter of time before the rest of you become targets too. Jacob, my heart pounded, betrayal and fear clawing at my insides. We have to. Suddenly, the heavy sound of footsteps returned, racing down the corridor. A chorus of voices rose, demanding, threatening, blurring the lines between the safety of the room and the chaotic world outside. Hide! I hissed, urging the girls to press against the far wall, my instincts roaring into battle mode. I grabbed Jacob and pulled him behind the table, ensuring we kept our presence as hidden as possible, but my thoughts spiraled, caught within the complexity of old wounds being torn open anew. The ramifications of Jacob's return infused dread into my heart. If everything he said was true, then our lives had been a carefully curated lie. As the door shook with the force of the impending intruders, a panic surged through me. What was at stake? Everything I cherished could vanish in an instant, buried under the weight of truths unfathomable and time lost. Then came the ominous sound of metal scraping against wood, a thrill of terror coursing through me. Were we truly prepared to confront the history that churned just beyond that door? Stay quiet. No matter what happens, remember, we are family, and we fight for each other, I whispered, steeling myself for whatever fate lay on the other side of fate that could shatter us completely or bind us closer than ever before. The table rattled violently against the door, as I thought of my girls watching, innocent and unaware of the greater battles we had no choice but to face. Yet, as the door swung open, I braced myself, and with that powerful moment, I felt courage blossom amid the fear, and the world beyond erupted. The light that spilled through the open door illuminated the shadows, revealing figures that loomed like specters against the past I thought I'd buried forever. In that heartbeat, the air shifted, the weight of truths long hidden colliding with the trembling edges of our fragile existence. The room felt electric, pulsing with uncertainty, a provocation that begged for confrontation. "Get on the ground." A voice barked, harsh and commanding, resonating through the chaos. I locked eyes with my girls, their expressions a mix of terror and confusion. I knew this moment would be etched in their memories, perhaps forever. They deserved answers, not more ghosts. "Stay behind me," I urged, one last attempt to shield them from the inevitable confrontation ahead. The overwhelming instinct to protect surged through me, a shallow armor against the encroaching shadows. But I felt a flicker deep in my gut, a voice whispering to me that protection could only go so far. Truth demanded exposure, no matter how painful or dangerous. As the footsteps cascaded into the room, relentless and overwhelming, Jacob's presence at my side flickered into focus. "We can explain," I heard him say, voice steady but laced with urgency. "Let us show you we're not who you think we are. For once, be quiet." I snapped at him, aware that any declaration would prompt a response. But I couldn't suppress the rising tide of emotion within me. We were trapped in this chaos together, gathered at the precipice of clarity, his past interwoven with my failures, a tapestry too intricate to simply ignore. My heart hammered in my chest as the figures stepped closer, their faces coming into the light. Familiar yet foreign, coated with an arrogance that clawed under my skin. A chill ran through me, and I realized the stakes were much higher than merely separating our truths from their lies. We stood to lose everything that defined us as a family. I sensed their suspicion before their voices even struck. "So, this is where you've been hiding?" the leader exclaimed, a man I recognized. Oliver's warning echoes filled my mind. "We came to fetch what rightfully belongs to us. And it's time you come with us." The room, once cloaked in shadows alongside unspoken secrets, now teemed with an intensity that swirled in the air thicker than the dust motes catching the light. "What do you mean?" I pressed, claiming the authority to face the darkness that crept forward. "You have no right to dictate our lives." "Yes, we do," he shot back, confidence mingling with disdain as he locked eyes with me, a predatory gaze that sought to devour. "Your family has been meddling for generations. We can't let this go any longer." Each syllable resonated deep in my bones, like a distant thunder I had long forgotten yet now faced with open vulnerability. The histories we battled were about to merge, the truth demanding to be claimed no matter the pain it might unravel. Without thinking, I stepped forward, unwilling to allow fear to dictate our fate. "This isn't just your story anymore. You're intruding on lives you don't understand. We have survived so much. Try us." The leader feigned amusement, his laughter filling the air thick with tension. "Survived? Is that what you call it? Your past has a way of catching up. And now, you are all in grave danger." In an instant, the atmosphere shifted. I felt it ripple through the assembled figures, an unseen threat unfurling like a predator surveying its prey. I glanced back at my girls, who were frozen, fear etched upon their youthful features. "Stay close," I whispered, overwhelmed by fierce protectiveness. They leaned against me, relying on that unbreakable bond we had woven together through love and sacrifice. "Mom, what is happening?" Emily breathed, her resistance faltering. "Nothing. We're going to face this together. We owe it to ourselves," I replied, my determination suddenly crystallizing like a diamond forged in the fire, and just then, a commotion stirred outside. Sirens that had once soared through a mystical night now pierced the tension in the air, swirling closer, merging with the unfolding chaos within. The leader's eyes narrowed, realization dawning. "This isn't over," he bellowed, before signaling his figures to withdraw. In a heartbeat, the ominous threat melted away, slipping like shadows retreating from a resilient light. As they faded into the darkness, I exhaled deeply, my heart racing with the soothing awareness that today was not the end, today could be a beginning. The police bustled into the warehouse, the shouts of officers reflected in the urgency of the air, but their presence felt different now, less daunting, more liberating. "What is happening here?" one officer inquired, glancing around at the scattered remnants of chaos we had just fled. "Family matters," I replied gently, my heart steadying as I pulled Emily and Sarah into an embrace, the warmth of their presence igniting a flicker of hope that could only come from shared strength. As police secured the area, I turned back to Jacob, whose eyes shimmered with a depth of emotion. "You found me," I whispered, overwhelmed with conflicting feelings, relief mingled with unresolved grief. "I never stopped looking," he replied, voice shaky yet brave. "I had to learn that telling the truth doesn't mean you'll always win. But it does mean you'll always confront what's right." In that moment, I understood the gravity of our history, the unbreakable bonds that tethered my family together through the tempest that threatened to rip us apart. The light that enveloped us was not merely from the sirens or the flashing lights, it was the reclamation of our story, a commitment to facing the storm together. As police officers began taking statements, I finally grasped what it meant to embrace pain as a catalyst for healing, what it meant for my family to be whole again. "We'll get through this," I assured my girls, squeezing their hands. "We've made it through storms before, and this one just became a chapter in our story rather than the end." A moment of silence enveloped us, a tender breath in a world full of chaos. And as I looked at the pieces of our family, both the ones familiar and those newly returned, I felt a sense of purpose settle deep within. "Together we face whatever comes next," I murmured, clenching my daughter's fingers tightly in mine. In that embrace of resilience and bravery, the final thread connecting us came together, binding us far beyond blood. And for the first time, as the sun peeked through the clouds, I truly believed, the past wouldn't define us, we would define our future. And as I took a step into the awakening world, I felt light pour into my heart, and my last words echoed in the stillness of the moment: together, we are unstoppable.